so excited to have Gustavo Bautista as our guest this morning. I have had the pleasure and honor of knowing you. We were talking about this for about 4 years, 4.5 years. You went through Bold, and I still remember it was way back when you first started with Prove It, and you were so hungry. You were just like, how do I learn? How do I grow? How do I become this better person? And you are one of these people who just stand out in my mind because of the hunger, this fire that was in you to go, okay, so what's next? What's next? How do I live my best life? And there's this process that we do where we get into affirmation, which I have a feeling is going to tie into some of what you're talking about. And I remember you were like, I am Gustavo Bautista and I am a champion. And it's just like this rally and this roar cry to just step in and step up into your best life. And, Gustavo, we haven't really seen each other. I've seen you, from a distance on Facebook for, gosh, it's been 2-3 years. And you're one of these people that just inspires me. So before we jump into your topic, I just want to read a little bit of your bio. So you are actually the son of 2 immigrant parents who came in from Mexico. You served as a Marine for 8 years. You studied cyber information security at Aviation Electronic Schools of America. You are currently serving as the director of an IT firm. You also are a certified Ketogenic Life Coach. You have dedicated your life to serving our country. Thank you so much. With that, I remember when someone told me it's less than 1% of people have served or are serving in the United States. And I just am honored and grateful to have people like you because you're a special breed. You're a special breed that has that passion to give to a greater cause. And you were saying, you were a youth director, even at the age of 16. And just your willingness to give and to serve and to give, and that's who you are. And so stepping into this conversation today of everything unfolds perfectly, living the journey, not the destination. I just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mary. It's such an honor to be here and to be able to speak to this community. And I'm so grateful for you, for who you are, for, your life and everything that you've been doing to not only inspire people, but to transform their lives into something beautiful, and to something that maybe a lot of people didn't know even existed in their lives and who they are. And I'm just so grateful for your life. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to dive in because knowing who you are today and just seeing the transformation and the evolution of you, we were chatting just a little bit before we went live. So tell me what it was like growing up as a son of 2 immigrants who came in from Mexico. So were you born and raised in California area?
I was, yes.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a really beautiful story. And I'll start off with my father. He came from Mexico. When I was about, I think 12 years old, I asked him the question of him telling me his story. And as he was growing up in Mexico, my grandfather took him out of school when he was in 3rd grade, and he had him work in the fields, and all the money that my dad gathered was used by my grandfather for alcohol. So by the time that my father was about 15, 16 years old, he ran away from home, came close to the border in TJ, Tijuana, and he started his own taco shop. And after that, he came to the US illegally. It was so much easier back then. And, everything is planned accordingly. We're very deep into our faith. We believe in God, and, he was saved, and he started working for somebody from church. And then eventually he started his own landscaping business. So growing up, it's always been like in our DNA as part of us to grow businesses, I guess, or to seek out opportunity. And um, you know, going to school, having summer breaks. I really didn't have a summer break because it was, going to go help my dad with landscaping. And I believe that at a very young age, just understanding that it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, um, to grow as a person, to to give it your all, to really understand what it is to do hard work. And I always saw that in my father. And then, of course, in my mom, um, I'm so grateful that she's still with us. My dad passed away about three years ago. Um, but what I've always, and I talked to this about my wife, what I've always been so grateful and thankful in my dad's life is that things that he lived through his generations, he cut them off, and he started like a new life for us. um so now I'm very passionate about that because I have that in my heart that I can do the same for my kids, right? So like, they can grow up and be um at a higher level of thinking, of working, of being, of living than myself. um and then on my mom's side, there was moments that my dad needed help. So when I was at school, she would actually be the one that would be his help. So she would be out in the business and landscaping, be pushing a lawnmower and helping out in that sense. So just having that as life really put a direction in where I'm at right now, and understanding things from that perspective. So they totally started a new path for us as our children. And for that, I am grateful. So yes, my parents did come from Mexico and they started a new life here. But they did everything they could to make sure that we were taken care of and that we had different opportunities. I remember my dad telling me, you know, I'm glad that you're working here because you can see this. And the point of this is that I want you to be better, that I want you to have a different lifestyle or a different life where you're not out in the sun all day. Like, you can have a different life. And I want to provide that for you. So that was very impactful for us as our kids.
Did you ever have like resentment when you were a child for the hard work?
I don't think there was resentment. It was just more of, we're children. And during summer, waking up early and thinking like, hey, this is my summer. Why am I working right now? I should be enjoying this time off. But, going into the Marine Corps and just now being a father, like, I understand those moments and I'm grateful for those moments because in those moments, there's a lexicon that I have, and this is grown because of proven. It's like, the resistance is my power and I'm going to step through it. And those moments, they were resistance in my life where, some of those moments I did have a choice, but at the same time, because of the values that my parents instilled in me, I understood that that was part of life. That was part of giving back to the family. That was part of, you know, living as a family, putting the work, putting the effort, even though in those moments I didn't want to, just because I was still, you know, 14, 15, 16 years old. Um, but those moments right now have brought, a different mindset. And I see it in my kids. Sometimes my son, he's like, hey dad, I need $10. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? And he'll go out to the neighborhood, see if anybody wants their leaves raked, or if they want to have their homes cleaned, or like, he'll figure it out. So it's very beautiful seeing that. But as far as resentment, I don't think there's resentment. There's more like thankfulness and gratefulness because of those moments.
I love it. I talk a lot about the way our culture, our upbringing, our beliefs, it really helps define who we are. And what your parents did is they broke the generational gap. And
Mhm.
so when you talk about it's a way of life, and we have, we come to this crossroad when we get older. We can choose to continue to walk that way of life, or we look at sometimes beliefs and values and like, that doesn't serve me anymore. And we choose a different path. But at whatever we do, we choose who we get to step into. We are a product of our choices, not our circumstances. I believe that 100%. But most people, they don't look at that. They look at they're a product of their circumstances, not their choices. And I had to ask that question because I knew the answer, because who you are, you don't come from a place of resentment. Sure, there's human nature. It's like, I don't want to do this. Yet it's just watching this grind that you have and gratitude. That's not even, I mean, just now, getting back on here with you, there's so much of a peace. Like you are so calm. And the earlier Gustavo had all this fire and this passion. It's like, come on, come on, come on. But now it's like life is happening to me. In fact, you said something about life happens for us, not to us. So explain what that means.
So this is very deep. And there's something that has always been in my heart that you've actually put, and it's, once the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Um, and I believe that there was a moment that I was living where life was happening to me. And now I understand that life happens for me, for us, right? And I guess the way to explain this um, is that as we live in the moment, and right now, this very second, my life, your life, this very moment, there's millions of possibilities. And I feel that when we live where life is happening to us, it's because we're living in the past or we're living in the future. So um, I've understood that there's a lot of things that happen unconsciously and happen consciously. So when we start living in the unconscious, I feel that that's like a connection to living in this very moment, in the now. And when life is happening to us is because we're being defined by something that happened in the past, or we're looking to something that we want in the future, and um, we're trying to be the person in the driver's seat, right? Um, so when life is happening for us, we've manifested or we've put that in front, but we're living this very moment. We're not letting the past or the future define us. We're just living this moment. And by living this moment, life is happening for us because we're allowing this very moment to define our future.
Mm-hmm.
So we're allowing this very moment to um, live. So let me give this example, because I'm trying to make it as easy as possible, but there's so much deepness into it. About, I would say 7-8 years ago, we were about to lose our home. Our home was going into foreclosure. And I try to do as much as I can. I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and I was very passionate about volunteering my time. So I was volunteering my time in a nonprofit organization where my kids were going to school. And I was doing everything that I could as a father, as the man of the house, as a provider, to make sure that we wouldn't lose our home. But it seems like every single time that I would do something, um, either it would backfire or it wasn't working. So as a person, I felt defeated. As a man, I felt defeated. And there was a moment, there was about 2 days left for our house to go into foreclosure. And I don't, it's not giving up, but it's I humbled myself and I said, God, everything is in your hands. Like, um, whatever happens is going to happen, and I trust you, and I'm not gonna do this with my own strength. Like, I'm putting this on you. Like, you take over everything that's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna step back and I'm just gonna let you take over. So at that moment, I wasn't living like life wasn't to me. At that moment, I shifted and life was for me now, because now I let go of control.
Mm.
So we went to this event. Um, and in that event, it was the day before we were going to get foreclosed. And of course, as a human being, I was like worried, but I knew that I wasn't in control anymore, and I let go of control. And we went into this like workshop. And when I walked in there and I finished the workshop, there was a person there that had so much power that I told him my story. And he's like, I want you. There was only like a couple hours left. I think it was like 7 p.m. And, the next day, like at 7 a.m., the whole process was going to happen for foreclosure. He's like, I want you to go to your room in the hotel, and I want you to write me an email, and I want you to put all this information. And I did that. And the next day, the foreclosure stopped and everything worked out. So that very moment, that's what I mean by life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, but we do have to shift the way we think, the way we do, because when we start living in the moment, then we're allowing things to manifest, because we're allowing God to take over. We're allowing him to put the pieces together. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But when it happens and we look back, we're like, that's why this happened. That's why this happened. Like, we start putting things together and it starts to make sense. But in order for that to happen, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to just let go and to not have control. And when that happens, then like beautiful things start to happen.
I can relate so much with your story. I mean, you're talking, and I'm just like, I've had some of those moments where exactly what you're saying is you have to humble yourself, and it's getting out of fear. It's like getting out of control. You can't control the future. You can be right here, right now. And I believe for human nature, that's one of the hardest things to do, because our mind is constantly spinning. It's constantly thinking. It's like, what if, and we have to control the mind to calm the thoughts, to get in a place that I'm okay with whatever happens. And it seems like when we get in that place, when we let go and we can be and actually be okay with whatever happens, all of a sudden all these doors start opening up. I've seen that over and over in my life, in so many other people's lives. And it's, if we could just learn to let go of fear, right? Let go of control, how much more of a gratifying life, a fulfilling life would we actually live?
You said it perfectly. And that's one of one of the things. I mean, 2020 was a very interesting year. 2019 was a year of, what is going to identify who I am. And it was the word fulfillment. Living every day fulfilled. I think for me, that was maximum, right? It was like the biggest thing, because every day when I would go to sleep, knowing that that day I was fulfilled meant a lot. And from that, from what you just expressed and what I expressed, that's what I feel. It's like living the journey, not living the destination. Because in order for us to have this moment right now, everything had to be the way it is in my life and in your life for this moment to happen. If something would have been different, then this moment would not be happening. So it's being grateful. I think that's the biggest thing, being grateful for the journey. Because when we start living the journey, and I'm not saying, don't have a destination in place, because that's where I feel like that's a lot of the manifesting is like, you know, this is where I want to be in the future, but not taking control of how it's going to happen, allowing, you know, everything to unfold perfectly. And even when something doesn't go the way we planned it, it's part of the journey. Like that needs to happen to get to that destination, but it's living in the journey, not living in the destination. And I think one of the best ways to describe that is, you know, sometimes, and I can say this about myself because in the past, and even sometimes I still struggle with this, but I think the power is knowing when I'm struggling so I can shift that mindset, because now I see myself in that moment. It's, you know, sometimes, or I used to say this, like, you know, I'll be happy when this happens. And you know, it happens, and then I'll be like, I'll be happy when this other thing happens. So it's like we're chasing happiness, but what about if we start living in happiness right now? Like, I'm super happy in this moment. And that's how I see gratefulness. It's like being grateful every second for everything that happens. And that's how I see everything unfolds perfectly, because as I live that, where everything is unfolding perfectly this very minute, this very second, then I feel that that's like living in happiness. I feel that by living in that state, then it's allowing, you know, everything to take place, the journey to take place. Because sometimes we can say, you know, let's live in the journey, not the destination. But if like the formula is not correct, if we're not living in happiness, if we're not, you know, everything is unfolding perfectly, then we are living in a destination because we're not living the moment. And even though I express this is something that me as a person, I do struggle with sometimes, but it's beautiful knowing that I can see myself, knowing this very moment that I've strayed away from the path and now I can come back. Um, one of my dear friends, Michael, he does NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and he works with vets and the VA. And he gave us a couple sessions with NLP. And one of the things that he brought up that expressed and that gave us as a tool was, you know, this very moment when I'm talking or when I'm going to make a decision, picture like myself behind me, seeing this very moment. And what is that person thinking? And then after you think about what that person is thinking, then, you know, see like God on top, looking at this moment, and what is he saying? Like, what advice is he giving you? Or, you know, how is he seeing this moment? And then go far from that and picture a fly, like, you know, just flying and seeing the perspective of how God is seeing things and how you behind you is seeing things and how you're seeing things. And that has been an amazing tool, because when I feel that I'm going away from the path or life happens, right? And there's stresses in life, or there's a moment that's happening where I can see like, okay, what is Gustavo behind me thinking of this? Like, what is God trying to tell me? And then what is the fly like on the wall, seeing like everything that's happening? And that has really helped in so many ways, because it brings me back to this moment. And I think that's an amazing tool, because, you know, I have friends that they're in a path of success, or they're in a path of failure, or they're in a path of destruction. And there's so much of me that wants to help, but they're stuck in a moment. And it's really hard to get unstuck when you can't see it from the different perspectives. So, I mean, for those that are viewing this, you know, hopefully you can take some of these tools and think about it from these different perspectives, because it's so powerful once we can, because it allows us to get out of that moment and then come back.
Well, it's being the active, it's being an observer.
Yeah.
And in life, we want to control everything. And when we control, we get stuck in the emotion. And when you can observe, you're actually stepping back from the emotion that hijacks And is to just go, oh, okay. In fact, there's a TED talk that I saw, and it's Todd Kashdan, and he talks about, it was the mad scientist, and he does this exercise where he has people put themselves in that thought, that ugly thought that they tell themselves, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm too ugly, I'm too fat, whatever that thought is, and he just has them sit and feel that thought for 10 seconds. And then he shifts it, and then it's, I notice I'm having the thought.
Mm.
And there's a 3-step process. And what he does is he gets people to get curious, right? To step back. And it's not that you don't have thoughts, it's that, okay, you think the thought and you move forward. It's like, okay, so I notice that I am having that. It's not that I am this. And it's the same thing you're talking about. If we can step back and go, who I'm observing. Okay, these are my thoughts. These are my choices. And now you get it even bigger. That, I love that analogy with the fly. Like, it's God, but then it's the fly going, whoo, what's happening? The more I think that we get curious, curiosity unlocks different opportunities. We get to see things that we've never seen before, but we have to step out of that emotion.
Yes. And that is powerful. I mean, that's, we were talking earlier about, when I first started Prove It, and I'm very grateful with Prove It because, I mean, ketones are very powerful. I know that either if somebody's living a ketogenic lifestyle or they're drinking ketones, there's a lot of stuff that happens spiritually. I don't know how much of the viewers here are familiar with like the pineal gland or, quantum entanglement, the quantum realm kind of things. Our pineal gland can be calcified. And when we have something that can help decalcify it, that's very powerful because we start seeing things differently. And when we're able to have a tool where we can step back and look at the moment, sometimes I feel, and I was there before, some people can't step back and they're living either in that past, and that past is defining their very present moment, and then that present moment becomes a reality. And I one of the authors from a book that has transformed and changed my way of thinking has been Joe Dispenza. And one of his books, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And there's so much scientific research that he's done with how the brain works and what happens when you go into yourself. That is very powerful. So one of the tools that my wife and I have, practices float therapy. And if anybody here that's listening has an opportunity to try float therapy, I would highly recommend it and highly encourage it. You can find it within, your city. I'm pretty sure there's a couple places there. And you go in this tank that's about maybe 1 foot to 2 feet of water with a lot of pounds of salt. So you float and it's body temperature. And you have the option to either, they have like some little lights in there, you can turn the lights on or have them off. You can have some specific frequency music that gets you into some mind states a lot quicker. And the first time that I got to experience this was in San Diego, and I went for a 90-minute session. And one of my friends that encouraged me, she was talking to me about it. She's like, hey, I only lasted about 30 minutes because I started to freak out. So I went in there and I was like, I want to try the 90-minute session. And I got in the tank, pitch black, no music, no lights. And I was just floating there, and all your senses are turned off. So I didn't know if either I was asleep, if I was awake, if I had my eyes open, if I had them closed. And there was a moment that I started to freak out because you don't know if you're alive or if you're not alive. But one of the most beautiful things happened. And this was back when I think I was 22, 23. We had a retreat for our church. And I remember, they said, pick a spot and I want you just to go there and just like go deep into your thoughts, deep into your heart. And I was sitting under some stairwells, and as I had my eyes closed and I was like just weeping in gratefulness, like I felt this love like I've never felt before. And when I was in that tank, it took me back to that moment. And I saw myself, like it was so real. Like I saw myself, I was standing over here and I was seeing myself under the stairs, and like I went to go hug myself. And it was so powerful. And then somebody knocked because time was up. So, at that moment, I didn't know if I was in there for 3 minutes, if I was in there for 3 years, but it was that moment of just having peace, of going deep inside. And there's other things that you can do in float therapy, but that was my first experience, and that was very powerful. And then my wife and I had an opportunity to be in the same tank together in one of them, and she had an amazing experience, and then I had another, and then we started sharing like our experiences. And we figured out that having those moments, my dad was a prayer warrior. He would wake up every morning at 5 and go to the church walking. It wasn't that far from where we lived, and he would open up the church for prayer. And I was little, so we would go with him and we just kind of fall asleep on the on the benches there. But this for me is a moment of prayer. It's a moment of, my wife, the way she expresses is like, I went there and it was just pure gratefulness. So she had 90 minutes of just being pure grateful for everything in life. And it's a moment of intensified gratefulness because there's no distractions, and you can just think and be there. And depending on how you use it, it can transform and change people's lives like that.
I've heard of other people who've done float therapy. I've never done it myself. And I mean, it's what they say is it's the ability to just be calm, to relax. And then at the same time, it's detoxifying you, right? Isn't that what it does with all the salt? Is detoxifying you as well?
Yes. I mean, when we came out, like our skin was very soft, and it was really nice. But yeah, it's detoxifying you from your spiritual state and from your body. So there's so many benefits to it. But yeah, it's something powerful. If anybody can experience that and has the opportunity to, like, I would recommend it. Even if you go for 30 minutes, you can turn on the lights in there, or you can put on some music. For me, I was just like, I'm gonna go all in. So I just,
Of
no
course you are.
music, no lights. And it's interesting because it's like the person behind me, and then the fly in the wall, and then God. It's like everything is combined because you're alone with your thoughts. And when I learned how I can control my thoughts, that was huge. Because I mean, I was listening to John C. Maxwell yesterday. He always does this free live every Monday. And he he's very deep into thoughts. Like, your thoughts define who you are. And when we can understand that we have control over our thoughts, and our thoughts don't have control over us, that is powerful. That will change. I mean, that will change the paradigm.
Yeah.
And it can happen within a second, a millisecond, because to understand that and to put it in action. And I think, when we understand that, when I understood that, it was something that became a passion, because I saw the power in that. So yeah, if anybody has the opportunity to go check it out, try float therapy. I think you're going to enjoy it.
So I have a question, because knowing your upbringing and then you went into the Marine Corps. You were Marine for 8 years. How did the Marine mindset help you with where you are today? And like, why did you ever go in there? Like, why did you enlist?
So I was not planning to be in the Marine Corps. I was not planning to be on any military um, branch. And I know the story is going to be crazy. It's some people are going to say like, what? You joined because of that? You know, when we're in high school, you know, military, they come in and they do a day of like explaining to you what it is to be in the military if you want to join. And I told my friend, he was really into it. I'm like, dude, I'm never like, I'm gonna be crazy if I join the military. And then the Marines mailed me this duffel bag that you can zip and it like smashes, and then you can unzip it and it opens up. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. So I joined because of that. uh, I mean, that moment, there was a huge transformation. I didn't tell my dad, my mom about it. You know, Lara, which we were going out in high school, she had no idea that I had joined the Marine Corps. And I told her, like, you know, when we're about to ship out. And I remember the recruiter coming to my house and knocking on the door for them to sign the waiver, you know, that I could be in the Marine Corps. And I still hadn't told them. So they found out by the recruiter coming to the house, and just having that support from my parents where, you know, they understood if this is something that he wants to do, like, let's support him without, you know, asking, you know, without any um, restrictions or, you know, anything like keeping me from going in that direction. And being in the Marine Corps, one of the things that, you know, I'm so grateful for the Marine Corps is that within 3 months, I became an adult from graduating from high school and, you know, having my birthday. And then like 2 days later, going into the Marine Corps. Within those 3 months, I became an adult. And just the mindset and the shift that happens is so huge, powerful, and incredible, that you learn to make decisions under stress. You learn to make decisions in a second, and you learn to analyze a lot of things. So being in the Marine Corps, going to officer candidate school while I was in the Marine Corps, and seeing, you know, the Marine Corps from different perspectives, I think was really powerful. Um, One of the things that I do miss from the Marine Corps is like the camaraderie, because, you know, that's something huge that's instilled in each Marine, and once a Marine, always a Marine kind of thing. So that's one of the things that I miss. But, you know, just being in the Marine Corps, that's one of the things, like, I grew up so quick. And that was one of those moments where, you know, one of the things that I know right now that's happening with my kids in their teenage years is that they're getting their identity. And a lot of values are being instilled right now, this very moment. And, you know, not just from my perspective, but from seeing other recruits that we were interact with. You know, there's about 50 recruits in there, and everybody has a different mindset. Everybody has a different growing, you know, like how they grew up. But we all came together. And in that moment, in those 3 months, there was a new identity that was built into us that I feel like, you know, I still have a lot of Marine friends, and just seeing their journey in life and where they're at right now gets me in a happy state, because it's, you know, that group of people brings power.
Yeah.
And, you know, just the growing up aspect of it, and be building identity and be building camaraderie is very powerful.
Well, it's the same what you're talking about where you're at right now. Our level, we rise and fall to the level of the people we surround ourselves with. So that support structure, when you have people who are all moving in the same direction, they all have this mindset of growth. And, you know, even my understanding with what, you know, with a Marine or whatever service you serve in, you have to be present. You have to know the vision and plan it, but you have to be present to make a decision, to do what's best. But everyone's fighting together. They're fighting for each other to be the absolute best. And then you take that into life, whether it's business, whether it's family, whether it's personal life. We are who we surround ourselves with. And if we're not being challenged, if we're not having someone who's having a bad day, going, wait a minute, you're better than that. What can you do? You keep talking about gratitude, and there's so many studies that show gratitude unlocks the door for health. It unlocks the door for life. Gratitude and anger cannot live in the same place. Gratitude and fear cannot live in the same place. Gratitude and frustration can't live in the same place. And if we can absolutely shift our minds to go, okay, you know what? Sometimes life sucks. Sometimes it sucks. Sometimes it's hard. But if I can be an observer and say, wait a minute, I have a choice. What am I going to do to step in, to step up, to choose differently? So how do you coach people, because you are a keto and health and life coach as well as all the other things that you do? How do you coach them when they're in that bad headspace? Life is really crappy, to be able to shift, because it's easier said than done.
It is. And I know when we went to Bold, I mean, there's a lot of processes that happen behind Bold. And I think I was talking to you or somebody there mentioned there's more than 90 things that happen. And it's getting someone, it's all mind. It's all the state of mind. And when somebody is in a state of fear, or when they're in a state of depression, it's a vibration and frequency, right? So I've learned that when we live in the frequency of love, fear cannot exist. John C. Maxwell yesterday, he put it in living in the yes, I can. And that's where you're on the other side of the fence. And having that moment, or that aha moment, or that transformation, it's from motivation to inspiration to transformation. When somebody is in a state of, in a bad place, I try to motivate. And then once there's motivation, then they're open, and then I can inspire. And then once there's inspiration, then I can provide transformation. And once there's that transformation, they have the tools to understand whenever they're in that state of depression, they can switch to gratitude. They can switch to the frequency of love. And when that happens, because now they know, there's no room for the other things to take place. But it takes work to get there, because there's been many years of, that person living in the journey to get them to where they're at. So now they need a transformation to shift the path of the journey to have a different destination. So it is a little bit challenging. I know with, an example you were giving of this person, where he talked about, putting like this view in front of this moment, or, whatever's happening in life. That's part of NLP. My friend Michael, we did some exercises where he brought a moment. He said, okay, I want you to think of a moment, and those that are viewing, you can try this. I want you to think of a moment in your life that has really impacted you, and I want you to put it in front of you, and I want you to be knowledgeable of the feeling you're having right now. I want you to see if it's in color, if it's in black and white. I want you to see if it's vivid colors or if it's dull colors. And then I want you to put it 5 feet away from you. And I want you to take the noise away. And I want you to put it 10 feet away from you. And I want you to picture it in black and white. And I want you to see it in a picture frame, like 20 feet from you. And I want you to, you have the noise taken away, you have the color taken away. I want you to make it into like a cartoon. So as he's doing these steps, it's making that moment, and it's reframing it, it's shifting it. And I feel that a lot of us, when we live in the past and the past is defining who we are, it's because we're allowing those moments to take control of who we are instead of living in the moment right now and allowing this moment and the tools that we have to transform and shift our future. So now we're no longer living in the past, we're living in the moment. And now the future has many, many, many possibilities because we're not defining it by the past, but we're allowing the present moment to take form and allow things to happen. So yeah, when people are in depression or they're in a bad spot, it's helping them to understand that they can get out of that moment. They don't have to live in that moment. And when that happens, then they're allowing healing in the body, healing in the soul. And now they know that there's frequencies that they can live in to put them in a different state.
We have a choice. We all have a choice. And I think what you're saying, what I hear is that if people recognize and realize we have a choice, we can choose to stay where we're at, or we can choose to think different thoughts. In order to think different thoughts, we have to see it differently. In order to have the paradigm shift, we can never have a paradigm shift if we don't have a new thought. In order to have a new thought, I mean, we have to surround ourselves with different people. We have to be open to feedback. And I think when people are stuck, that's the last thing they want, but it's that hungry and humble mindset. And I wrote that about you, is that you're so hungry. You are so hungry. And you've always been this person that just inspires me by your humility, your hunger, your drive, the ability to pivot. When you fall down, you get back up. There's never a no for you. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. And I was sharing, earlier, just some of the impact that you have made in the times at Bold alone, some of the conversations. I'll never forget, you said one time, you said, in the military, we were taught that failure was not an option, because if we failed, lives could be lost. Like literally people would die. And your mindset and shift became, okay, so I failed. How fast can I get back up? And it's just that little tiny tweak. And sometimes I think people think when they get stuck in a mind shift that they have to just completely change everything. It's just that little thing. Okay, so how fast can I get back up, instead of I can't fail? Okay, I'm going to embrace it, but how fast can I get back up, and what can I learn from it? And then do it again and again and again.
That's very powerful because, I mean, I think success is defined by failures. We cannot have success without failing. And the more we fail, the more success we have. Because, I know that when I was in Bold, one of my fears was fear of success. And it was because of failures. Like, I wasn't succeeding because I was fearing of failure. And failure is like the stepping stones to being successful. And it's understanding that when we fail, like how you just expressed and said right now, how fast are we going to get up? Or what did we learn from what just happened? And those stepping stones are like tools in our toolbox, or tool belt that, we learned from them. And when we learn from them, then we can go a step further because those push us to go further. And sometimes we can fail and just stay stuck. But if we get up and keep on going and know that there's going to be another failure and we're okay with it, then that's when we're living the journey, because we're allowing the moment to take its place. And by allowing that moment to take its place, then we're allowing to everything to unfold perfectly. So yeah, Bold was powerful.
Well, I'm going to open it up. I have Facebook Live up here as well. If anyone has any questions, please put them in. And as we wait for that, I just want to know, just last thoughts, right? I always say this is your soapbox. What haven't you said that you would just love to impact, to influence, to get a message out?
If there's something that somebody can take from all this is living in the frequency of love. Because when we can do that, then everything starts to unfold perfectly. And what I mean by living in the frequency of love is like waking up in the morning and waking up with joy. If there's stress happening in life, just letting it go and say, I don't want to take control of this. Like, either God, you take control of this. And, you know, getting out of the bed and saying, today's going to be a beautiful day. Everything's going to unfold perfectly. And there's one thing that I can guarantee you is when we do that and we live in happiness, we live in the moment, then your day is going to be way different than what it was yesterday, because you're putting that frequency out. Wake up, wake up in love, wake up for being grateful that we're able to breathe today. Wake up knowing that we can walk. Wake up knowing that, you know, when we step out, the sun is going to be shining, or if it's raining, there's water for the trees, or, you know, just always take the full day and just be in that frequency of love. And I can guarantee you that that day is going to be so different than any other days that you've had, because you're allowing the moment and everything to take place. And you might even be surprised at the stress that's being caused in your life, or whatever problem you're having in that moment, where God is going to take control, and things that day are going to provide you the answer and to resolve whatever is happening, because you're in a higher state of mindset and you're allowing the energy of who you are and the energy of your life to flow out, and to manifest things that you never thought possible in that moment. So one of the things, another lexicon that I have is, you know, where your energy is, like, everything will flow to that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's change our state of mind. Let's be in that frequency of love. And God is love. So we're being in that frequency. So that is the highest and the most powerful frequency that exists. So let's try it out.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you were just talking, so there's that movie, What the Bleep, right? And
Yes.
it was, I think his name is Dr. Hashimoto, where he did the whole thing with the water crystals. And it was, so there was toxic. So people were saying things, thinking things, there was negativity. And then there was prayer, and then there was gratitude. And the negativity ones, and actually I've seen other things, it was rice. So I just watched something, Eric showed it to me. It was over the same thing on rice. So they put this rice in these little cylinders, in the same concept. So it was like negative music, negative words, and it started rotting. It was like black. It was so gross. And then the other one was like, it was prayer and gratitude. And you're talking about love, right? Because that's the ultimate. And it was just beautiful and fragrant. Same study was done by IKEA with plants in a high school. And they were doing a whole bullying campaign. And it's the same mindset, right? So one, it has all this negative, there's these voices, you're ugly, you don't belong. And the identical plants in the same area with the same light, the same nutrition. And then the other one is speaking positive, gratitude, affirmations. And within 30 days, the toxic with the plant, the toxic thoughts, the toxic words, the plant was dying and the other one was living. And so you talk about the frequency of love, of gratitude. If that's doing that to rice, to crystals, to plants, what does it do to us?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're at choice. We get to choose.
And yes, and we get to choose what day we're going to have, how we're going to see life, what frequency we're going to be vibrating in. And, you know, we're all energy. Everything around us is energy. And these eyes can only see a specific frequency. If we could see all the frequencies, I mean, it's like the Matrix, you know, seeing all those zeros
Right?
and ones kind of thing. We could see everything that we do, how it affects, you know, one of my passions is being in such a high frequency that when I walk into a room and there's negative frequencies, that my frequencies is so strong that those people can feel it and shift that frequency that they're experiencing in that moment to something different. And you know, just understanding that and being able to manifest that and being able to, you know, walk into a Zoom meeting, right? Walk into a Facebook Live, and that people that are experiencing a very different frequency that I am, that it's mine is powerful enough that it can shift theirs on the spot. So yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for showing up, for being here, for your message. I've been after you for a year, and I always know that when the student's ready, the teacher appears. When the student's ready, the opportunity presents itself. And you inspire me. You're one of the most real, authentic, passionate people that I know that actually does the work. Like, you do the work. You don't just talk it, you walk it. And I just love watching what you're doing with Laura and your kids, and what you're doing with your community. And Gustavo, just keep being that light, because you're touching more lives than you even realize. And I'm just honored, my friend, to know you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary. I appreciate this moment.
You're welcome. And thank you, everyone, for being on here and watching. We will put this on our YouTube channel and then also the Apple podcast. And next week we have PM Bergman on at 9 o'clock. So can't wait to see you all back here next Tuesday. And thanks again, my friend.
Thank you.
Have an amazing day.
You too.
All right. Bye for now.